Right. Okay. So for those just joining us or watching the recording later, we've just had a look at sort of talking about status reports and how you pull data through from Jira into Confluence. And that's just in this status report demo page underneath the Ancient Furniture project in Integrity Works demo in that site. So today we're going to have a look at workflow properties and those sorts of things a bit more. Just before we do that, I saw when I first logged into Jira this morning, I saw there was a notification saying that roadmaps for classic projects are available. So to enable those in your projects, you can go to board settings on the top right-hand corner. And let me just show where that is. I go to board settings. And there's a new menu option down the bottom here, roadmap beta for classic projects. So for next-gen projects, which I haven't really played with much because I don't like them, the settings are a bit different. I think it's under features or something like that. But for the boards that we're looking at, if you go to board settings, roadmap beta, and enable it there, then it comes up with the roadmap in the background. And I didn't want to click through this screen because I wasn't sure if I could get it back again to just go through this with you guys together. So the roadmap view, it pops up this sort of mini tutorial thing. So managing work through epics. So this is where you can create, and I'm reading this for the first time, okay? You can create, manage, visualize your epics so that everyone's on the same page. Cool. And understand your progress. So I'm guessing over here somewhere there's an indicator of progress. See the status of the work inside your epic and who's working on what. Okay. Visualizing dependencies, so linking between the two, and that looks like it's going to be something like a scaled agile framework dependency board with strings, virtual strings sort of thing. So that's pretty cool. You know, we've got a few epics in here and everything's landing in September. So can I, oh yes, I can. So I can drag that across, and can I indicate a dependency? No, what do I do there? No, that's prioritization. So I can drag things up and down to change the priority. And there's probably some way, to create a dependency. Oh, cool, okay. I'm not sure about the view of the dependency. Okay, so recovered data, cleanup, blocks, Windows 10. So I'm guessing that coming out of the right-hand side of that indicates that this is dependent upon by that one. So I don't know if it's got any smarts about auto scheduling and that sort of thing, but that's pretty cool. And then we can expand our epics down here. Okay, so that's pretty cool. It's not as functionally rich as advanced roadmaps, and that makes sense because Atlassian would be making money out of people upgrading to Jira Premium, but this is pretty cool. So I think I'll be using that myself in my work. So feel free to have a play around with the roadmaps. So just to go through those steps again, if it's not showing in your project that you're playing with, just go to board settings, and down on the left-hand side, roadmap, and then just enable it, and you'll get those same pop-ups. So if you wanted to go through that yourselves, you could create a project, so create a new one with a Scrum board. Roadmaps won't work for Kanban, I don't think, because it doesn't make sense. Oh, there we go. Yes, we can have a roadmap for Kanban.
Well, I'm trying Ancient Circle. I've toggled on the little slider on the top, on the right-hand side, then click on roadmap.
Yep.
But I get nothing.
Yeah, Ancient Circle.
Yeah, I tried with one of mine as well.
Yep.
Nothing. It's just.
Oh, so you didn't get this one?
No, I don't get that at all. No.
Okay. Are you in Integrity Works demo?
Yeah.
And Ancient Circle? Oh, that's a
Yes.
Scrum board.
Yeah. Ancient settings for Scrum board. Should I go to backlog?
Which board? Do you want to share your screen for a second, Ignacio?
Yeah, sure. Let me see.
Is that okay?
Yeah, certainly. I cannot share at the moment.
Oh, okay. If I stop sharing.
Right. I'll now you can
Oh, yeah.
see that I'm on the Ancient Circle project,
Yeah.
and I'm got the backlog. So if I go
So if you click on
board
roadmap
settings,
on the left-hand side, Ignacio, yeah,
right.
it's already you've already enabled it. So yeah, it's over there.
Interesting. Because what I did, what I wanted to, how do I get, how do I get rid of
You
this?
can click on skip on the left-hand side there if you want to.
Skip. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I did, let's see. Let's go ancient furniture.
Yeah.
It's already there.
I've
Interesting.
enabled it on that one. Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, right. The one, and I think,
If you grab one of the other projects there, maybe go to APR.
okay. It's already there.
And
Sorry, I'm in it. I'm the one that I just created. Sorry.
That's okay. Now look, I'll show what I'll do. I'll show
that's
what I'll
good.
do.
That's good.
I'll show what I'll do. This is the one that I was trying to create, and I understand you said it doesn't work on Kanban.
It does actually. I didn't think
Does?
it would, but it did.
Okay.
So
what I do is I do this. I go
yeah,
board settings.
yeah,
Then I do that.
yeah.
There it is. It's making me look like
Yeah.
an idiot now.
No, not at all.
No, but look. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I was clicking here.
Yeah.
And
So that
click
one,
here.
this one here, that was for going to the tab in the settings, whereas the other one is your backlog. So now it's prompting you because you don't have any epics created yet. Now it's
Yeah.
prompting you to go ahead and create epics. So actually,
Right.
this is pretty cool that you can create epics directly from here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So that'll be a
Okay.
good thing to play around with. Yeah.
I will do that. Yeah. All right.
And down on the bottom right is that quick start link. So that might bring up some of those, mini shoot. Oh, it's a Jira quick start, not a roadmap quick start.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool though.
Which was interesting. On this point, I was trying to, when I set this project up, I wanted to create a team. And I couldn't create a team because I didn't have admin or site admin rights. So then what I did is I had to just create some issues, and in the issues assign them, and that's how I was able to then send the notification. So you would have seen, perhaps you and Kudzi would have seen a couple of things piping up on Slack from me.
Yeah.
It's the only way I could do it. I was trying to set up a team. So I was trying to start from scratch, create a project, set up my board, and then create a team. And I couldn't create a team because the message said, you're not able to create a team on free versions. You've got to upgrade unless you're the site admin. And
got it.
yeah,
Okay.
anyway, just it was by the by. I just wanted to.
No, that's all right. And that might be because it's connected to inviting teammates, which means adding more people onto the subscription. Yeah.
Right, and it would get out of control if it was just on free. Potentially could get it. Okay, all right.
Yeah, and it might also be another marketing strategy by Atlassian to get people.
Yeah, bit of upsell. Yeah, all right. Look, I'll stop sharing now.
No worries.
Thanks, Paul.
That's all right. Okay, so
quick question, Paul. Well, did we land up to this roadmap thing from the settings?
Yeah, so let me share my screen again.
And my second question is this also customizable at a story level, or it has to be at a higher level, which is Epic?
Their roadmap, here, I think you can, so you can indicate, I think, what sort of status, yep, okay, so you can sort of filter by what status you want to see. And also, if I had, okay, so for this roadmap type, which is the basic roadmaps, yes, it's always going to be that Epic view. So in advanced roadmaps, so which used to be portfolio for Jira, in there you can create a customized hierarchy of issue types. So out of the box with Jira, you've just got epics, and then either tasks or issues, and then subtasks. It's really just 3 levels to that hierarchy. Whereas in portfolio for Jira, or advanced roadmaps is what it's called now, you can create an infinite hierarchy if you want to. So you could have like initiative and then features and then epics and stories and tasks and even levels below that if you wanted to.
And you can pull out data from multiple projects, because that's the real essence of running a portfolio, right?
Yeah. So the way they get you, so this this basic roadmap is for free inside the standard version of Jira and in the free version. But yeah, they get you here because it's only limited to one project. Right. So they'll say, no, if you want multiple projects, you got to upgrade. So yeah,
Yeah.
they're being quite clever about it. So it's pretty cool to get a taste of what roadmaps can do. And then if you want to have multiple project roadmaps, that's when they would say, well, for that, you need to use advanced roadmaps, which is, going to cost you because it's Jira Premium.
Right.
And then for big organizations, they would then say, well, to see a whole of enterprise roadmap, you need Jira Align, which is another upgrade again.
Yeah.
So their marketing people are working quite well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. No stress. All right. Let's jump into workflows. So here now, the way that we got to this last week. Wow, time flies. Was via project settings, workflows. And then, so under the ancient furniture project, better jump into the right project here. Ancient furniture, make sure that I'm playing with the right workflow. So we're looking at ancient furniture, project settings, and then we were looking at workflows, and we were editing the Jira editable after close workflow. I'm just going to open that in a new tab. Okay, just get rid of some of these. I'm going to leave this page here so that I can read it later, and I'll just share that on the chat as well. And Manarajan, I've just seen your comment there. I don't have access to Jira on IntegrityWorks demo. That's right. So these free ones. So if we go to IntegrityWorks demo, there's a limit of 10 users for the free versions of Jira. So IntegrityWorks demo and demo 01 have filled up. And I think it's IntegrityWorks demo 02, the third instance that I've given you access to.
Okay.
So I hope that makes sense. All the things that we're doing here today, you can replicate in the other one as well. So you can create projects and you can play with the workflows and the roadmaps and all that sort of stuff in that instance as well.
Just
all right. Thank you.
Just replace it with demo 2, is it, Paul? The link that you shared, because
that's right. So demo 2.
Yeah.
Demo 1. Okay, so here's demo 01.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And here's demo 02. Yeah, good point. So for those who are logged into those, who've got subscriptions for those two, there's the links there.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. No worries. Okay, so we'll go to the diagram view of our workflow. So we're looking at Jira editable after close. And we were playing mostly with the update values transition. Last week, remember, we had a look at properties. We talked through triggers and conditions as well. I think we got all the way through conditions. Let's see. And the last thing that we were playing with there was that the field story points will have to be greater than or equal to a value of 3, compared as a number. And if it's not, then that workflow wouldn't work. So let's just go back and verify that. Remember, we were on the Scrum board. Scrum board, we're looking at open sprints. And so if we open up something that's already in the done column, and the reason I'm looking at done is because on our workflow, remember, you have transitions that take you from one status to another, or a transition can actually return to its current status. So in this case, we had created a transition called update values, which goes from a status of closed and back to closed again. That is, it doesn't change the status, but we could use this for performing a bulk update or copying values or some other function. And personally, I've used this a lot if I had changed a workflow or the resolutions that were available in a workflow. And if I wanted to do a bulk update of the resolution. So there are some things in Jira that you can't directly edit via a bulk update, but you can sort of trick it by using a transition and applying that transition to a number of issues at once. So if I wanted to set the resolution for 100 issues to my cat's lost or something like, I don't know where I came up with that, but if there was a transition that, a resolution that you wanted to set everything to, you could do it this way. So I've used these kind of transitions for data maintenance and that sort of thing. Quite often you could restrict this so that it was only accessible to yourself or to administrators, so that most people won't be, confused by some of these admin type transitions you might have in your workflow. Okay, no worries, Supro. Thanks very much for attending, and we'll keep recording.
Sure.
And
Thank you.
we'll share this after. Yeah, no worries. Right, thanks, mate. Okay. So conditions. So if we looked at this ANF 98, just as an example, this one is in the status of done. And its story points. Yeah, I'll probably pick one that doesn't have story points on it. Story points 3. Okay, so story points will have to be greater than or equal to 3 compared as a number. So in this one here, I have update values. Right, that transition is available to me. If I change the story points back to 2, then remember that that option disappears. So that was when we were playing around with the conditions last time. So I'm going to delete this condition so that we don't get confused about other changes that we're making. And if we add a condition, let's see were there any options left. Value field allows to execute a transition if the given value of the field is equal to a constant value or simply set. And I think that's what we where we ended up last time. So the other tabs here are validators and post functions. Now the main difference between conditions and validators is that conditions will prevent the transition from appearing. Validators will check the data or a rule as the workflow is executing that transition. So for conditions, for example, under ANF 98, we are prevented from executing that transition at all because of the conditions that have been put on. And that could be, again, based upon the groups that a user is in, the current assignee, a status that something has been in, the value of a custom field, the value of story points, etc. And that would prevent that transition from appearing. Whereas validators, you might still have that transition available. So that update values field update values transition might still be available there, but it might throw an error or not do the update because of a validator. So let's have a look at the validators that are available. Okay, and Supro's just made a note there. Just to remind you, Demo 2 doesn't have project sample data, so I can't really see the sample reports. Okay, thank you, Supro. So I'll make a note to replicate project data. I'll do that once to demo 02. If I do it ongoing, it will overwrite whatever you guys are playing with in there. So I can do it once, but I probably need to be careful or check with you guys before I do it each week. Sorry. Okay, so with our validators, we can do a date compare validator. So we can compare two dates during a workflow transition. So let's have a look at that one. Date window. So there's a hard comparison, I guess, between two dates, or we could compare two date fields within a time span. We could make a particular field required. So it could be, for example, we must have story points before we can go from sprint backlog or backlog to in progress, for example. Field has been modified. So a field value must be changed during the transition. So we could prevent the transition of update values if nothing's changed, for example. That's cool. Field has a single value validator. So multi-select field has not more than one value during transition. There's a custom field type where you could do a multi-select. So it could be, for example, that you have departments set up and you might be able to pick from marketing and engineering or something and apply that to an issue. So in this case, this validator would say, well, you can only pick one value out of that multi-select field. Parent status validator validates that the parent issue is in a required state. So for a subtask or for a story where there's an epic, perhaps this would be that you can't move a story to in progress unless the parent epic is in a status of in progress, or you can't move a child to done unless subtask to done unless the story or parent task is in a status of in progress or something like that. Permission validator validates that the user has a permission, and that goes back to permission schemes, which are limited in the free version, so I can't really demonstrate that, but it could be that, and I'm guessing here you could probably pick any permission. It could be that somebody can't close an issue in a sprint if they don't have the ability to schedule an issue or the permission to schedule an issue, for example. Previous state validator, validate that the issue has previously transitioned through a specific state. This is similar to one out of the conditions. Remember last week we were looking at in progress, and we ensured that an issue had been through a status of in progress before it would enable that transition to be present. So this one is applying the same sort of rule, but it's just validating while the transition is running rather than preventing the transition from being available. Regex, so regular expression check, validate field contents against regular expression during a workflow transition. That's pretty cool. I hadn't seen that one before. So you could look for a particular text pattern of numerics and alpha characters or something like that to, it could be really powerful actually. I'm not sure when you'd use it, but it would be really powerful. So that's pretty cool. User permission validator validates that the user has a permission, whereas the OS workflow variable holding the username is configurable, obsolete. Yeah, okay. So that one looks like it's pretty much a duplicate of this one, validates that user has a permission. If it's obsolete, they shouldn't really enable it, but anyway. Okay, so let's have a play with date compare validator. And any questions, just ping them on the chat there or interrupt me. Either way, it's fine. So date compare. So let's see, if we go back to our board here, and let's see for one that's in progress, what options we've got here. So date fields, days, none, scheduled duration, scheduled time, scheduled date. So we've got a scheduled date field available, and that's a custom field that remember this data is data that I imported from like a mock data setup tool. So we've got a custom field that's been imported of scheduled date. So I'll just write that down. And what other fields we got here? Time zone. Okay, that's just a single select drop down. Customer district, original estimate. It's looking for, oh yeah, due date. So we've got a due date field. Okay, so let's put our scheduled date. Let's just pick the 1st of September. Our due date. Let's make that the 30th of August. I don't know why, I'm just picking some arbitrary values here. So let's make sure that our scheduled date is less than our due date. In this case, I've got the scheduled date set to be after the due date. Include the time part. So dates are composed of day, month, year, and also our hours and minutes as well. So I'm guessing if we choose yes to include the time part for comparison, if the field doesn't have a time part set, zeros will be used instead. Please make sure that the value, and I haven't seen this before, right? So I'm just saying this for the first time. Please make sure that the value you're entering is valid, otherwise the transaction will fail. Yep, makes sense. You may enter an expression by specifying an offset. Okay.
Sorry, Paul, the format of the dates is like the Japanese, right? Year, 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 month, month, day, day. Is that correct? So it's year first, month, and day?
In Jira, it's different in different places. Just to be confusing.
The due date field,
yep.
It's got 2020-08-30, and in the scheduled date, again, 2020-09-01.
Yeah, yep. There are places where it will appear in this format. There's other places where in JQL, I think you have to define the date as a 3-letter date instead of, so it gets a little bit tricky in places. And for JQL, I would usually create some date, if it was a date comparison that you're doing using the basic editor. So just the drop lists and things, and then change it to JQL and just edit the values, just so that I make sure that I got the date format right.
Right, but in any case, you just select the calendar, click on the date, and it actually populates it the way that it processes it, right? So
here it does. That's right.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
So just while we're at that, let's go to advanced. Just going to jump into the JQL search for a minute. So ANF68. So here, if I said project equals ANF and due date is less than. Let's go now for a second. Okay, greater than now. Okay. And so I've got this ANF68 there. Now, if I wanted to do due date equals, I'd switch to basic. And I could just go to more and I'll search for due date. And during the next, I'll go between. So the 23rd and you can see how the date format's here. This is where it gets really confusing, right? When you select a date, then it goes day, month, year, right? So instead of being a 4-digit year and then a slash month slash day, it's now the other way around, but we've got letters for the month and a 2-digit year. But when it's in this box over here, it's showing me a different format. So 30-Jan-2012. So yeah, it'd be great if they'd pay a bit more attention to their UI. Okay, so if I go update, now if I jump to JQL, now it's in this format. So if I'm going to write JQL, then I can do year, month, day, but it's hyphens in between, not slashes. And I'm guessing that's because slash is reserved. And down here it's showing slashes again. I'm guessing it's because hyphen in JQL is probably a reserved character for divide or for some other function. So / is probably divide, / is probably an escape character or something. So here we've got /, but in JQL we've got a hyphen. That's caught me out a few times before as well. And normally if I'm trying to get around some quirk like that, I'll just Google for an example, and in Atlassian forums there'll be an example of how to write a JQL for a date comparison or something like that. Okay, so now if we search, then we just get ANF68 back. Okay. Okay. So, okay. Annapurna, did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, Paul, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Welcome. Okay, apologies if I missed, but is this the validator for workflows and setting parameters for the same? Okay, good question. We've sort of jumped off track a little bit. We're just talking about date formats in Jira in general. So I've just walked through some of the different formats that are there. So I'll get back into the workflow now. And thank you for picking me up, because I, yes, tend to get interested in different things and get off track a little bit. So we've got an option here. So this is the validator that we're looking at. We're going to compare scheduled date with where the scheduled date is less than the due date. And the little information box down the bottom here relates to if instead of a field, if we're going to pick an expression. So here it's saying, make sure that the value you're entering is valid, otherwise the transition will fail. So offsets are built with a number, optionally with a minus, the prefix for past and one of the following time units. Okay, so we could say that where the scheduled date is less than, and we could say minus 20D, and that would be comparing the scheduled date for 20 days in the past from now. So today minus 20 days, it would be that minus 20D expression. Or we could say, if we take the minus out, then that will be 20 days in the future from current time when the expression is calculated. So it's pretty powerful and a little bit risky, I guess, but it's powerful with what you can do with these expressions. And again, if you want to find out about the format, you can certainly post on the Slack channel, or usually I'll just Google and find something in the Jira forums where somebody's done this before and they have an example of the right format to choose. So we're just going to go back to field again. Scheduled date less than the due date. And I'm going to add that validator. Okay, so it's now got the validators there, verifies that the scheduled date is less than the value of due date, only the date part, so it's not comparing the times. Now if I publish my draft workflow, I'm going to close that one. Okay, so we've published our workflow now. So ANF68, refresh my screen. And this is the one where we've got the scheduled date is the 1st of September and the due date is the 30th of August. And so here, okay, so I had put this condition on the update values. So I'll need to move it to closed first. And our resolution is done. And then update values, so that option is available. And okay, so like I was saying before, the transition will still appear as an available transition. Comes up with this screen, so it asks me to choose a resolution. But when I click on update values, then I get a warning message or an error message at the top. Scheduled date isn't less than the due date, 30th of August at 12 AM. Right, so that's executing that the condition that we had. So if I edit my workflow again, go to diagram, and my update values, transition, scheduled date is less than the value of due date. So let's edit that that one. So now if I change it to be greater than, so we want our scheduled date to be greater than our due date. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but anyway, maybe this is for a release or something and we need to finish our work first. And publish our draft. Not going to save it back up. Okay. Now if I try it, update values, resolution's done, and it succeeds. All right, any questions about that one so far? Okay, what's the difference between closed and done status of an issue? Really good question. And this is something that's been very confusing for people in the past. Jira's out-of-the-box workflow has and this is the way that Jira used to sort of be configured. They would have a status of resolved and a status of closed. All the default workflows now, when you create a new workflow or you create a new project and it's got a basic workflow in it, it has the status of done rather than closed. And there are two different concepts here. There's a status and there's a resolution associated with that status. So a resolution is really the outcome of the transition or that issue that you're tracking. So when you move something to done, let me bring up issues here for a second. We'll go and have a look at resolutions. You move something to done or closed. You might move something to done, but it might, oh, there we go. Thank you. Done, work completed by a specific team. Closed, all work completed by a team and no work required. It depends, Manarajan. So usually done would reflect the end state of something, and a done might be the last status in a workflow, but you want to know the outcome. So something might be done, as in we're not going to do any more work on this thing or we're not going to touch it again, but you might have an outcome of, well, we're not going to do it, right? So somebody might create a story or a request for a feature, and the product owner might look at it and go, I'm going to close that off and I'm going to put in a resolution of we're not going to do it because it's either not viable at the moment or it's technically not feasible or something like that. Another outcome or resolution might be duplicate. So you might have a feature request, you might say, well, this already matches something that we've got in our backlog, so I'm going to close that off with a status of done, but it's going to have a resolution of duplicate. For a bug, it could be an outcome or a resolution of cannot reproduce. So somebody might raise a bug and you try and find it or replicate it and you can't. It could be a resolution of fixed. So you might have found a bug, replicated it, applied a fix, deployed it to production and closed it off as fixed. Won't fixed, resolved, etc. And you can add whatever other resolutions that you want to in your system. So question from Sandeep. So Paul, can a developer say that she or he has resolved the issue, implemented the software requirement, and then let's say a QA engineer verifies the issue user story by performing software testing and marks it as closed? I think, yes, Sandeep, that was probably the original intention from Atlassian when they had this kind of a classic workflow of an initial resolved status and then a closed status after that. And then later they just simplified it. So the green boxes indicate that something is resolved at that point. So now, generally the only green box is the done status in a workflow. And quite often people might add in workflow statuses of in review, in testing, approved, different things like that, to try and satisfy that need. It's a really good point though, or it raises a really good point that workflows are there to be customized. So if your business has need of a column to indicate that something's in review, or that it's waiting for approval, for example, or it's ready for deployment to production or something like that, you can modify your workflow to suit. And that's when you might put in conditions and validators to put a bit of control around who can mark something as done or update values, etc. Yeah, good questions. Okay, so that was talking about resolutions. Okay, so in our workflow, back here. Okay, so we're currently editing a draft, and I'm going to go back to validators. All right, so let's play with another validator. We've got 10 minutes left actually. So I've been through the different options of validators and shown how they work. So maybe in the next 10 minutes, let's have a look at post functions. So just to summarize on the validators, there's a range of different validators that you can apply. And when you apply one of these, so let's say parent status, for example, it will probably ask you for some config around that. So status of the parent issue, for example, and you can choose, I'm guessing, one or more statuses where that transition would be permitted. So from Sandeep, the confusion with done is that it's being understood as really done, no more work remaining as the definition of done is met. Yeah, very true. And I also think that closed is probably clearer than a status of done, because if you've got a status of done and a resolution of won't do, it's contradicting itself. So to me, it's kind of a bit silly. So I would probably prefer a status of closed actually, with an outcome of done or an outcome of resolution of done or won't do or can't reproduce or something, rather than the status of done. I think they're probably using a status of done because done is the word that's used in Agile to indicate that no further work is required on something out of the backlog. Okay, so that was validators. Any other questions about validators before we have a quick look at post functions? Okay. So post functions, when a transition executes, so when we look for the transitions that are available, that's controlled via conditions. When we execute a transition, that's controlled via validators. Post functions is what happens after the transition successfully executes. So if we look at our post functions that we've got here now, the following will be processed after the transition occurs. So if we had a validator error, then these post functions won't execute. It's only upon successful execution. So number one, set the issue status to the linked status of the destination workflow step. So in this case, it would set the status again to closed. And just on that, if we go to history here, so we can see that the status, even though it didn't change, it's still set from closed to closed, right? So there is actually a database update that's happening when we do that. Adding a comment to the issue if one is entered during a transition. So when I go from closed, select update values, you get this comment box by default. So we're going from done and putting a comment in. Okay. Now if I look at this again, and look at my history. So it doesn't show the comment in here, but it shows that I've gone from closed to closed again, and my comment has been applied. Comment here. All right. Update the change history for an issue and store the issue in the database. So that's what we saw there when we look at the change history. And we see closed to closed. And if I had have updated other values at that time, so let's see if I change the resolution to won't do, and I change the assignee to me, and I've changed or added a component to fax server, and I add another comment. Here's another comment. And I refresh my history again. So we can see here there are audit log entries here. So I've changed the assignee, changed the status, well, updated the status to closed. I've added a component of fax server, and I've changed the resolution from done to won't do. Re-index an issue to keep indexes in sync with the database. So it does a database reindex, not a full database reindex, it just reindexes the issue itself, and fires a generic event that can be processed by the listeners. So the types of listeners that we might be interested in here would be, if we go to ANF, project settings. I know we're almost out of time here now, so we can keep this conversation going on Slack. But notifications. So we've got these events here, right? Issue created, issue updated, issue assigned, etc., and generic event. So it would fire that event, generic event, and I can change that to be a different sort of event if I wanted to. So here are other events that are already configured by Jira, and I can also configure my own events if I want to. So we go to System, and I think it's in the screen, Events. And so we've got all these out of the box events, and I can create a new event. Let's call this a Meetup event. It's a bit cheesy, I know, but anyway. And we can choose a template. So we could just say this is our issue updated, and add that. So I've just created a new event. It's inactive at the moment. And if I edit it, you probably don't get a lot of detail. All I can edit is the name and the template that's used. I don't know what the template is, how it's impacted there. So in here, I can change my event now to a Meetup event. Go update. So we're going to fire a Meetup event that can be processed by the listeners. Let's just publish this draft. And now, if I go and execute update values, I'm just going to change it to duplicate. I'm going to get rid of my components. Update values. Refresh my screen. And interestingly, it doesn't tell me anything about the type of event that's been fired, but that would be in an audit log. And if there was a notification about this, then I'll do it. So if I actually change the assignee now to Ignacio, the Ignacio should get an email or a notification with the type of event saying that it was a Meetup event that happened, I think. Okay, Ignacio, I might get you to just, if you do get a notification there, if you can just do a screenshot and put it on the Slack channel after, if that's okay.
Yep, will do.
Cool, thank you. All right, so what else have we got here? So workflow, identify, edit this one again.
The only thing though, Paul, is so it's a generic event. How can I physically, visually confirm, yeah, here is my event. It was published to all listeners. But what does it consist of? An email? Is it a screen? Is it a, yeah, what is a generic event?
Yeah, so there's not a lot to them. I think it just indicates the type of email notification that's going to be, email or notification that's going to be sent. Potentially also you could detect events or have a trigger. So if we go back to, I'm going to go to our workflow again and edit. You could go to diagram, go to triggers. I might be able to add a trigger. There's nothing in there about events. There might be some functionality around events in conditions and validators or post functions, but I think it's really just around the type of notification that's sent. If I fired a issue resolved event, then that will set the resolution date, for example. So there's some internal functionality associated with events as well.
Right. So in this case, generic event is just blank because there's nothing happens, right? You just quoted one update issue. I can clearly understand that, expect that the issue will be updated, but with a generic event, it's blank. Nothing substantive happens, does it?
Yeah, pretty much. That's right. So if I looked at notifications, for example, and generic, if a generic event, if a generic event happened, then you would get an email, but I had forgotten to configure my notifications. So for the Meetup event, okay, in my workflow, I fired a Meetup event, but I've forgotten to associate anybody or any groups with that event in my notification scheme. So actually, you won't get an email or a notification that I've performed that Meetup event.
Right. So the only reason I got that message, the email that I got, it's just effectively because you had tagged me as a signee, and it was part of the configuration of the transition so that assignees get emailed.
That's
but it wasn't tagged to the fact that you set up a Meetup event, because the Meetup event hadn't had email configured yet.
That's right. And I think actually, so I performed that transition a couple of times. There was once when it was assigned to you, when it was associated with the generic event, you would have gotten that email or notification. But when I changed it to Meetup event, because I don't have that associated with any groups or users, it won't have sent you a notification. So I would need to edit notifications and add current assignee. Okay, so now if I do that one, I'm confusing myself. So I need to go back to project, active sprints, and let's pick ANF 98. 68. Sorry, I've got it open over here already. So now 68. If I now go change the resolution. Now you should probably get a Meetup notification, or a notification based upon that that Meetup thing anyway. I think. Anyway, I might have to play around with that a bit more. Okay, so the other sort of post functions that can occur, we can assign it to the current user. We could assign to the lead developer, assign it back to the reporter. We can clear a field value. So for example, if I wanted to clear out the scheduled field for some reason, scheduled date, we could do that. We can copy a field from another field. So if I wanted to copy from due date, for example, to scheduled, date, and you can copy within the same issue or copy from the parent. So now if I leave the ordering the same here, if I copy the due date into the scheduled date field and then I clear out the scheduled date, I'm going to get nothing. So I can change the ordering here. So the scheduled date will be cleared first, and then the scheduled date will be overwritten from or copied from the due date. Really, I could just get rid of that first one and it would overwrite anyway. Okay, so we're going to go scheduled date from the due date. So let's see, scheduled date at the moment is the 1st of September. Due date is 30th of August. So if I update this again, and refresh. I need to publish my workflow, of course. All right, let's try that again. So ANF68. Okay, now the date changes. Always remember to publish your workflow. Okay, so if I edit my workflow again and go back here, I know we're over time, so I'll wrap up quickly. Okay, add another post function. Let's see what other options we've got here. Yeah, so you can clear a field value, you can copy from one field to another. Creating Crucible review workflow function. So Crucible is another Atlassian product around software development management. Setting the issue security level based on the user's project role. So in Jira, there's the concept of permissions on issues, and there's roles and all the rest of it. But it's also, you can apply security issues, security levels. So you might have a vendor that can't look at your particular Jira project, or it could be that within a project they can't look at stories, but they can look at bugs. I think also you can, using this workflow, you could also change the security level. So you might have work that was going on in your organization during a sprint, and while it's in a subset of your workflow, you might want your client, I don't know why, but you might want your client not to be able to look at it. And then once it's ready for testing or something, then they can see that issue again. So you can get quite sophisticated, I guess, with security levels as well. You could trigger a webhook. If this post function is executed, Jira will post the issue content in a JSON format to the URL specified. So you could actually update a Confluence page, for example, as a result of a workflow transition. I haven't tried that out, but in theory, that looks like you could do that. Update the issue custom field to a given value, or update an issue field to a given value. So let's just have a look at one of those for a second. So I could, for example, change assignee to either an automatic value or unassigned, or to a specific person. I could change the description field. And as you go through the different options here, of course, the value options change as well. So I could set the description to something in particular. You might have a user field that you want to update, or the amount of time taken or something, or some other custom field that you might want to update along the way. All right. So that's a whirlwind tour of post functions. So here you can compound, I guess, your post functions and what you have set. You can change the ordering, you can edit, and you can delete. There are some things in here that you cannot delete or edit. So for example, adding a comment, I can't do anything with that one. It's just going to happen if a comment's put in there. Setting the issue status, I can't change that. Updating the change history, reindexing, but the event I can change. But you can see for the event, I can't change the ordering of that. So Jira's out of the box post functions will happen in a certain sequence, but the ones that I add in will be at the top, and I can change the ordering of those. All right. Annapurna, any YouTube link of these sessions to go through again for more clarification? Request you to please share. Yeah, absolutely, Annapurna. I'll post the YouTube link probably after I finish work tonight. I'll download the Zoom video and then put it up on YouTube, and then share the link on Slack, in our Meetup group, and on LinkedIn as well. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. I know that was pretty fast. These sessions, there's quite a lot that we go through and quite a lot to take in. So again, please feel free to watch the YouTube channel, post on our Slack channel. If you're not in our Slack channel, just send me a message or an email with your email address, and I'll add you in. If you'd like access to any of these, to the Jira instances, actually it's only the third one now that's got slots available, and I'll create another one if we need to. Please just send me a message or an email, and I'll add you in free of charge as well.
Well, I've just sent updates on the Slack channel. I just did
Awesome.
screen grabs of all of the work that you did on ANF 68.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
It's just there for everyone to have a look at.
So the Slack channel looks like this. There we go. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
All right, that's
Thank
cool.
you.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Gotta
No
go.
worries.
Thanks for your
Okay.
time, Paul.
No
See you,
problem.
everybody.
All right.
Thanks,
See you
Paul.
soon, guys. No worries. Okay,
Thanks,
bye.
Paul.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. See ya.